Some guns are built so well they stand the test of time. Others, well, they're so over-engineered they feel like a solution in search of a problem. But what happens when a firearm tries to do too much and ends up causing more headaches than it solves? In this video, we're diving into 8 of the most overly complicated guns ever made. Firearms so intricate, even experienced gunsmiths had trouble figuring them out. We're talking about semi-auto revolvers that jammed if you look at them wrong, pistols that fed rounds backward, and guns packed with way too many moving parts. Some of these designs were ahead of their time, but most, just an overcomplicated mess that proves sometimes simpler is better. These firearms show what happens when designers push innovations past the point of practicality. Some became cult classics, others disappeared into obscurity. But all of them had one thing in common. They were just too complicated for their own good. Let's break down these bizarre examples of firearms that tried too hard to be different. Number 1. H&K G11. If there's one firearm that defines overcomplication, it's the Heckler & Koch G11. A rifle that looked more like something out of a sci-fi movie than a practical battlefield weapon. Designed to use caseless ammunition, it abandoned traditional brass cartridges in favor of a solid propellant block, which was meant to eliminate ejection steps and increase firepower. But while the concept sounded great in theory, the execution turned the G11 into a mechanical nightmare. At the heart of its design was a rotating drum bolt system. Each time the trigger was pulled, a cartridge was loaded into the drum, which then rotated 90 degrees downward to align with the barrel before firing. Once discharged, the chamber rotated back up, repeating the cycle. But instead of a simple mechanism to achieve this, H&K devised a complicated system of gas pistons, gears, cams, tracks, and fingers, all working together just to chamber, fire, and cycle the next round. And then there was the hyper-burst mode, a futuristic feature that allowed the rifle to fire 3 rounds in a micro-burst before the shooter even felt the recoil. This was meant to increase accuracy by delivering multiple shots before muzzle rise could occur. To compensate for the intense firing rate, the G11 had an internal counter-recoil system, adding even more layers of complexity. While the Bundeswehr was initially impressed with the G11 and approved it for adoption in the early 1990s, geopolitical shifts, specifically the end of Cold War, led to budget cuts, killing the program before the rifle could see mass production. Even if it had been widely issued, the cost, intricate design, and maintenance headaches would have made it a logistical nightmare. The G11 remains a fascinating piece of firearm history. An example of a brilliant yet impractical engineering marvel. H&K pushed the boundaries of innovation, but in the end, it proved that no matter how futuristic a weapon may seem, complexity often leads to failure when simplicity is the real key to battlefield success. Number 2. G41M. In the midst of the World War II, German engineers were desperate to equip their troops with a reliable semi-automatic rifle to counter Allied firepower. However, doctrinal constraints stated that no gas port could be drilled directly into the barrel, forcing designers at Mauser to devise a workaround. The result was the G41M, a rifle using a cumbersome muzzle-mounted gas trap system that attempted to harness propellant gases in the muzzle to cycle the action. This approach added weight and length, which immediately raised concerns among the troops who carried it. The G41M also included a backup bolt action function, an unflattering statement on how doubtful the designers were about the rifle's semi-auto reliability. The muzzle device was prone to fouling, especially under battlefield conditions where mud and debris were commonplace. Soldiers often found themselves stuck with a rifle that frequently jammed and required complex cleaning procedures to remain functional. In practice, many units in the field discarded the semi-auto components and simply used the rifle as a manual repeater. Unsurprisingly, the G41M quickly earned a reputation for being too heavy, too finicky, and not worth the trouble. Walther's competing G41W design sidestepped a few of these issues by partially ignoring the original guidelines, but even that version proved only marginally better. Ultimately, the lessons learned from these clumsy rifles paved the way for the Gewehr 43, which incorporated a short-stroke gas piston and detachable magazine. The G41 faded from service soon after, living on as a textbook example of how rigid directives can lead to bizarre and overcomplicated designs that solve nothing. Number 3. Mateba 6 Unica. In the modern era, revolvers are best known for simplicity, but the Italian-made Mateba 6 Unica challenged the assumption by adding a highly unconventional mechanism. It's one of the few recoil-operated revolvers ever made. Upon firing, the upper assembly recoils rearward, rotating the cylinder and cocking the hammer automatically. This results in a lighter trigger pull compared to a traditional double-action revolver, theoretically boosting accuracy and allowing faster follow-up shots. However, that advantage comes with baggage. The extra moving parts demand painstaking manufacturing and maintenance. The revolver's motion can also feel unsettling to shooters used to a solid frame design. Plus, Mateba pistols are famous for their low bore axis. The barrel aligns more closely with the shooter's hand, while this reduces muzzle flip and improves control in theory. It's overshadowed by the overall weight and mechanical complexity of the system. To keep everything running smoothly, owners must clean and lubricate numerous contact points. Any slack or misalignment can cause malfunctions or hamper the semi-auto cycling. Add to this the steep price tag and rarity of parts, and you have a revolver that's impressive on a workbench but impractical as a regular carry or duty firearm. Statically, the Mateba 6 Unica has garnered a cult following, especially among fans of unique futuristic designs. It's also famous for appearing in certain manga and anime, boosting its collector appeal. Yet for most people seeking a self-defense or competition revolver, simpler options like Smith & Wesson or Ruger remain far more sensible, but so is its over-engineering. Number 4. H&K P7. Heckler & Koch is known for high-quality firearms like MP5 and G36, but the P7 reveals that even reputable manufacturers aren't immune to over-engineering. Unlike most semi-automatic pistols that rely on either direct blowback or a lock breech system, the P7 uses a gas-retarded blowback mechanism. Gas from the burning propellant is diverted into a cylinder under the barrel, slowing the slide's rearward movement. This alone would make the P7 more complicated than many competitors. But H&K added yet another twist, a squeeze cocking lever on the front of the grip. To fire the P7, you grip it firmly to press the cocker, which deactivates the internal safety. That design was meant to enhance safety by ensuring the gun wouldn't discharge unless you intended to shoot. However, mastering the pressure required can be tricky. New shooters sometimes fail to consistently maintain the squeeze, causing the pistol to uncock mid-sequence. Additionally, the P7's gas cylinder area can become very hot just after a few magazines, making extended training sessions uncomfortable. Maintenance is also more demanding than a standard lock breech pistol. You have to clean the gas port meticulously to prevent fouling, and disassembly is a bit less intuitive. While some users praise the P7 for its excellent accuracy and low bore axis, its high production costs and unique controls deterred law enforcement and military buyers who preferred simpler, cheaper sidearms. In the end, the P7 became a cult classic rather than a mainstream staple, a testament to how innovative ideas can sometimes create as many problems as they solve. Number 5. Steyr GB. Steyr is recognized for innovative rifles and pistols. Yet the Steyr GB fell into the trap of unnecessary complexity. Marketed in the late 1970s and early 1980s, the GB used a gas-delayed blowback system similar in spirit to the H&K P7. Though with its own twist, a piston under the barrel regulated slide movement via leftover gas from the fired cartridge. This design, while unique, didn't offer major advantages over simpler Browning-type tilting barrels. The GB's large, heavy slide and somewhat awkward frame dimension made it less user-friendly. This assembly required extra steps due to the piston arrangement, and the pistol itself had more parts that needed precise fitment. As a result, it was more expensive to produce than many competitors. On top of that, the Steyr GB didn't perform significantly better than mainstream alternatives like the Beretta 92 or Sig P226, both of which also had plenty of ammunition and proved reliable in military testing. Although the GB could handle large capacities of 9mm, often 18 rounds, the pistol never secured massive contracts that would justify continued production. When combined with the high cost, the design's uniqueness could outweigh its practicality issues. Despite some fans applauding its accuracy and smooth recoil, the limited demand spelled the end for the Steyr GB. It now exists as an interesting footnote in the history of over-engineered handguns, overshadowed by simpler and more cost-effective service pistols. Number 6. Boberg XR9. The Boberg XR9 is notable because of how it handles ammunition. While most semi-auto strip cartridges from the front of the magazine as the slide moves forward, the XR9 used a reverse feeding mechanism, pulling rounds backward and then rotating them into the chamber. This unorthodox approach allowed the XR9 to maintain a longer barrel and compact footprint, theoretically improving ballistics. Unfortunately, real-world performance showed that many types of ammunition weren't compatible. The force exerted by the extractor in Boberg's feeding system sometimes tore bullets from the casings, causing catastrophic malfunctions or jamming the action. Owners discovered that only certain brands with exceptional firm crimping around the bullet would reliably function in the XR9. Additionally, field stripping and cleaning were more involved than standard pistols. If you neglected to lubricate specific areas or used ammos outside Boberg's guidelines, malfunctions became likely. The design does have its enthusiasts who praise the impressive accuracy and clever space-saving layout, but for the average shooter, it's finicky compromise. Later, Bond Arms acquired the Boberg design and refined it into Bullpup 9, attempting to address their issues. Even so, the complexity of backward feeding cartridges remains. The Boberg XR9 concept is remarkable for pushing the boundaries of pistol design, yet it serves as a reminder that truly game-changing layouts often come with a steep learning curve and limited ammunition compatibility. Number 7. STGW57. Switzerland has a reputation for precision engineering, and the STGW57 is a preferred example, except it might have taken things a step too far. Designed as Switzerland's first self-loading rifle, the STGW57 borrows from the German roller delayed blowback system, similar to what's found in the MG42 and later H&K rifles. But in typical Swiss fashion, they couldn't just leave well enough alone. They had to make it more robust, more durable, and unfortunately, far more complex than necessary. The receiver design is a prime example of these over-engineering, unlike German roller-delayed rifles, where the locking recesses are machined directly into the receiver. The STGW57 features replaceable steel inserts to extend service life. While these theoretically increases longevity, it also adds unnecessary parts and complexity to an already intricate system. Then there's the recoil spring assembly, a contraption of 3 nestled springs inside a plunger tube designed to reduce bolt bounce. Again, a clever touch, but most military rifles function just fine with a single recoil spring. Other quirks include a fold-down winter trigger, which is a nice touch for gloved hands in alpine conditions, but adds yet another moving part that can fail. The charging handle, which resembles those found on older Swiss bolt-action rifles, is a nod to tradition, but feels antiquated compared to more intuitive modern designs. All this precision machining and excessive attention to detail came at a cost. Literally, the STGW57 was one of the most expensive service rifles ever produced, requiring significant man-hours and high-end materials. While it was rugged and reliable, its excessive parts count made field maintenance a challenge, and the weight, over 12 pounds unloaded, made it one of the heaviest service rifles of its era. Number 8. Webley-Fosbery Automatic Revolver. Revolvers are typically celebrated for their mechanical simplicity, But the Webley-Fosbery proves they can be taken to unnecessary extremes. Introduced in the early 1900s, this British creation attempted to merge the reliability of a revolver with the rapid-fire capability of a semi-automatic. To achieve this, the entire upper section of the revolver slides back upon firing, cocking the hammer and rotating the cylinder for the next shot. In theory, this design allows faster follow-up shots compared to a standard double-action revolver. However, the reality was far less practical. The sliding top portion demanded a firm, consistent grip. A slight limp wrist or poor recoil control often caused it to fail to cycle properly. Furthermore, any dirt or debris that found its way into the rails could cause the revolver to jam, an issue that standard solid-frame revolvers rarely experience. Manufacturing costs were also high because each Webley-Fosbery required tight tolerances and more precisely fitted moving parts than a regular revolver. During World War I, soldiers and officers needed sidearms that could tolerate harsh battlefield conditions, and this finicky design simply wasn't apt to the task. Combined with a heavier weight and unusual manual of arms, it failed to attract the military contracts Webley hoped for. Collectors today prize surviving examples of the Webley-Fosbery for their novelty and aesthetical appeal. Nonetheless, from a practical standpoint, it exemplifies overcomplication. Instead of streamlining the revolver's strengths, it introduced additional point of failure that overshadowed any potential rapid-fire benefits. And that's a wrap. We've just explored designs ranging from backward-feeding pistols to awkward gas-operated rifles. As with most things in life, being different doesn't always mean being better. Each firearms on this list attempted to introduce revolutionary ideas, but ultimately their complexities overshadowed the benefits. In many cases, simpler, more reliable alternatives won the day, as more moving parts can sometimes lead to more problems. If this video was helpful or entertaining in any way, please help our channel grow by leaving a like, sharing this video with your friends, and subscribing to our channel. And click the bell icon too while you're down there so you never miss any of our new videos. Thanks for watching!